Good day, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 106. As always, I'm going to start us off with a bit of a tune.
Up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild. Your new gods sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threats of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that Eden folly, bring all your hopes to Lord. Take up the white man's burden, not tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his soul's reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humour are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, a loved Egyptian guise? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall weigh your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy young grudge praise. Come thou to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give or wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all the fantasies.
And having just played that, here is the man himself. Good evening, Chris Card. Good morning, actually, for us, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, if I suddenly stop talking, it's because I've fallen asleep. I only got about 3 hours sleep last night, so I'm very tired.
You were talking to me very late last night, And I only slept a couple of hours myself. I went to bed and then ended up waking up at about 3 o'clock.
I just couldn't sleep at all. I don't know why. But anyway, here we are.
The lorryist in the chat is saying you should record Men of Harlech as it was sung in Zulu.
Never heard of it.
I've seen it. Men of Harlech it's a big time Welsh song. It's actually a good song, and there's quite a famous version at the end of Zulu, which is not historically accurate. They didn't really sing it, but it's quite a good bit in the movie.
If I suddenly turn Welsh, I'll do it. I'm a Brit, an Englishman.
Fair enough.
What's going on? What's happening? What are we doing?
Well, I'm just about to ask people for first topics. I know that Adam has got quite a few. Have you got anything you wanted to bring up, Chris, before you fall asleep?
Probably the only thing I can think of is what came up just a few days ago. I don't know how it came up, but for some reason, everyone on the dissident right is talking about blowjobs. I don't know why. It seems like every day I go into to look in on what the discourse is, and it seems like it goes further and further down the fucking gurgler. So I don't know what's going on there, but for some reason we have a bunch of trad Zoomers that think that, even if you're in a monogamous marriage, that blowjobs are still degenerate. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
That explains something, Chris. I was watching the Traditionalist stream before this started, and there were people in his chat going on about oral, and people were calling it buggery and all sorts of stuff, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
These people are sexless Zoomers, Duke. These are people that have literally never had sex.
I don't get it. Blowjobs are one of the best things in the world. I'm sorry, they just are. It's
ridiculous. I don't know how we got here.
As Chris says, between monogamous couples, of course, monogamous heterosexual couples, yes.
Yeah, not leather parties in the city.
No, absolutely not. And you're asking for trouble. But But between monogamous couples, there's nothing wrong with them. Honestly, I do worry about some of these young guys who are just so puritanical.
Yeah, well, they're just becoming the binary between like the Bappians and then this just autistic trad incel. It's just so insane. I don't know. And how this sort of becomes the talking points of the day when we should be really talking about more important things. But here I am contributing to the problem and bringing it up once again.
Not really. I think you're actually pointing out.
I think I'm just observing, just looking in from the outside at what just all these internet people are talking about. Because even though I do spend a lot of time consuming, social media of some form or other, I've never considered myself like, part of the internet kind of realm, because I just look at it and I look what it does to people who are on it from the minute they wake up to the minute they fall asleep. And I'm like, this is just not real life. I want to be out, touching the grass, as they say. I'm out working and I'm out doing things. So it just seems so ridiculous. Go outside.
I generally like
go outside and meet a woman.
When I've done this stream, you generally won't find me online much for at least 2 days. Yeah. You really have to, Chris is entirely correct. Go and do something real. And yes, go and find a woman. Get a blowjob, for God's sake.
well, I mean, you've got to build the groundwork to get to that point.
Yes. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to do that. Probably won't happen on a first date unless you're lucky, although I will say. But, The lorryist in the chat says, not all the Brits at Rorke's were Welsh. That's very true, the lorryist. In fact, a minority of the Brits at Rorke's were Welsh. Because it was the Royal Warwickshire Regiment at that time, not the South Wales Borderers as it became in 1881. Although there were quite a lot of Welsh guys in it because of where it was recruited. But I think that's a good point, Chris. I was saying in the Discord this week, it doesn't matter. It seems to me it doesn't matter what you say if you're on the right. Someone in the dissident right will call you a cuck or something like that. Doesn't matter what it is. It's like a load of washerwomen in some respects.
Yeah. Oh my god. Anyway.
There are women outside, says Nathan CJ Hood in the chat. Yep, there are. Go and sub to Nathan CJ Hood's channel. He's got a very good channel and he does some very good content.
Thankfully, not much blowjob talk on there. So
no, there isn't.
Much more wholesome.
Neither pro nor anti.
Yeah. Nathan Hood's channel is very, very cozy and very wholesome. So.
Yeah, he does a lot of traditional English and British stuff. So yeah, but
he also does these wonderful little lyrical licks and parodies of different songs with commentary on the current thing. And he sent me a few strips of lyrics that I'm going to eventually make some music into, but been a very busy boy. But yeah, once we clear up some time, I think me and Nathan are going to be making a couple of little songs together.
That would be cool, man. That would be cool. Yeah. By the way, I did like your typical Aussie bloke video you made. Needless to say, for those people who are not down under, it's a piss take. That's not what the vast majority of Australians are like at all.
Speak for yourself.
Come on, man. The chances of you kicking your two spoiled dogs are extremely low.
They're always in the way, though.
Yeah, you won't kick it.
No.
But yeah, no. The only thing you missed out on, you should have had that Aussie dude punching the kangaroo in that little video. And he actually did that to rescue his dog. He got slagged off by all these animal rights people. What was he doing? Punching a kangaroo? It was because the bloody kangaroo was going to rip his dog's guts out. Any
such cases.
Yeah, like kangaroos can do that. With those great big massive back feet of theirs with claws and all the rest of it. And he was saving his dog.
Yeah, he was very lucky that kangaroo didn't decide to just like rip his gut open with its claw, like its foot claw, which they do. Like emus or cassowaries, they can just disembowel you.
Yeah,
with big claw.
Well, apparently, what happened, and I looked this up. Like the kangaroo had grabbed his dog with its front legs and was going to try and do that to his dog, and that's why he ended up hitting it.
That's right. Kangaroos are pricks, mate. Don't let them fool you. They might look cute and cuddly, but they'll get you. You run away from the ocean, from the crocs and the sharks, and then you go inland, and then you got to run away from kangaroos and cassowaries and fucking spiders.
I was going to say, up your part of the world, you got cassowaries, and they really are dangerous if you corner them.
Yeah. Well, they're literally dinosaurs.
Yeah, I saw a video called that the other day. Yeah. Nathan is asking, does kangaroo taste good? Yeah, not bad. It's quite like venison, I'd say.
It's delicious. When it's cooked properly, it's amazing. You can't cook it for too long though. If you get some kangaroo fillets and cut them into probably I'd say 3 centimeter cubes or something like that, and you can only fry them for maximum 4 or 5 minutes. Just you
don't want to overcook them. Yeah, absolutely.
And oh god, it's so good. It's the most tenderest, most beautiful game meat you'll ever eat. It's not really gamey like you would expect it to be, but it's not. It's I
would say it's like I've eaten antelope in Africa and I've eaten venison in the UK, and it's like somewhere in between that. Somewhere in between that, roughly. But it is nice.
Yeah, some people outside of Australia get a bit funny about the whole kangaroo thing. I remember I had kangaroo leather gloves like a while back on my motorcycle, and every time people would get really funny about it.
Yeah.
And similarly, I remember there was a guy. He was an Australian. I think he was an Australian bodybuilder, but he had his career was ruined, and he kind of went off the deep end a bit. And a clip circulated around where he killed a. I think he found a dead kangaroo and he chopped it up and he was going to cook it, and people were really, really kicked off about that.
I'm not sure I'd do that. I'm not sure I'd do that.
No, he was off the deep end a bit, but.
Adam in the chat says, "Do they eat koalas in Australia?" No, they're not. They're not common enough.
They're not particularly edible either. I mean, they're completely saturated with whatever it is in eucalyptus that makes them high.
Yeah, of course they would be. So I didn't even know that.
they're probably toxic to eat.
Yeah, they could well be, but yeah, but they're not that common. Like kangaroos are really common in Australia.
Yeah,
like I can jump in the car and drive, I don't know, probably 35 minutes from here and definitely find kangaroos.
Yeah, koalas are endangered because of all the fucking development that was going on. And I mean, they could usually survive in the past, but because of the urban sprawl plus the bushfires, because we don't have regular forest clearouts like burn-offs. So whenever we do get a bushfire, it's catastrophic. So just a combination of those things, plus the chlamydia that they get, which is actually sort of thinning them out as well. Don't ask me how they got chlamydia.
Victor Claris in the chat. How common are feral camels in the outback? They're fairly common.
Yeah,
you can certainly see that if you're going up towards Alice Springs around that area, you can find them around there for sure.
Yeah, the brumbies, the camels, the kangaroos out in the outback, they regularly have to get thinned out because they overbreed.
I have to say, one of the very few charities that I support. Adam, Australia has the only wild Arabian camels in the whole world. Like even Arabia doesn't have any wild ones, but Australia does. And in fact, the Saudi Arabians have even imported Australian camels to like improve the DNA of their camels.
Yeah,
true story. But yeah, I do, one of the few charities I support, and the other one is mostly dogs. I do support Brumbies charities where they instead of shooing them, they basically neuter them so that they don't breed so quickly. Because I really hate shooting them from helicopters and shit like that, which is what they sometimes do. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, because they are beautiful creatures, but at the end of the day, they've now become a pest, so it's a problem.
It's like everything else. I reckon like Australia would be poorer without wild horses.
Yeah, but it's like at the same time, you got to put yourself in the shoes of the the station farmers and stuff that are out in that area that get their fucking land trampled to absolute smithereens by all of them, and they have wild cattle out there as well, or am I imagining that?
Yeah, no, they do. There's wild cow, there's wild goats, there's wild donkeys, there's all sorts of bloody things in the outback. But I mean, but the thing is, you see, they used to get these horses and they'd round them up and they'd use them for the ringers, the Australian version of cowboys.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, in wartime, they'd use them for all the Australian cavalry regiments, the light horse units and all that kind of stuff. But of course, that doesn't happen anymore, which is partly why they've become a problem.
Oh, can you imagine having a cavalry force in Australia? That'd be based.
Yeah, I mean, look, do you know South Africa had cavalry units, even when I was in the South African Army? And of course, the Rhodesians also had them, and they were the same sort of units as Australia used to have. They were basically mounted.
And didn't the Turks have the camelry?
They did have camelry. They also had cavalry with lances and shit as well.
Cavalry and camelry.
Yep, they definitely had camelry. But the Australians have also been camel regiments. So, like the New South Wales contingent who went to the
they're
Sudan.
such useless, bumbling creatures, though. Jesus.
Well, they're not great. You can't fight from them very easily, but they're quite good for moving you around in sort of desert
so temperamental. So temperamental.
I've got to just reply to Ninius in the chat. He said, I was just watching your Australia Day stream and you were so drunk, Duke. Ha ha. No, mate, I wasn't drunk at all. I wish I had been, but I wasn't.
Out.
No. People often say I'm drunk when I'm not. I mean, do I sound drunk now?
A little bit.
Really?
You don't get any proxy sleep before you come on.
Mate, honestly, I've been up since 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's why. That will make you sound pretty drunk.
All right, fair enough. But I'm not drunk. I mean, people often say this about me. It's just the way I talk, guys. I'm sorry. What's this? Victor Calero says, I've recently discovered Australian country music. There you go, Chris. Music. Slim Dusty sang about camel trains packing wool, which I'm sure they did.
Slim
I
Dusty's
mean,
still
that's how
alive.
the camels ended up in Australia. They were like Afghan and Pakistani these days would be called camel drivers who came over to Australia, and they used to run stuff through the desert and semi-desert of the outback.
So, Slim Dusty died in St Ives in 2003. What was he doing over there?
Was he in UK?
Yeah, St Ives.
Okay.
That's in Cornwall, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There you go. Slim
I like
Dusty,
Slim-
a
I
true
like
Aussie
Slim
hero. True Aussie hero.
The Pub with No Beer is my favourite Slim Dusty song. It's very. I think that's a pretty traditional Aussie song, isn't it?
And he famously did the really big live version of Waltzing Matilda as well.
Mm-hmm. You're stretching there, mate.
Yeah, I'm so fucked. I don't know how you do this. Just have a couple hours sleep. It's just.
I've just been used to it, mate. I haven't slept
Yeah.
properly for donkey's years, and I'm just used to it now. Although I will probably end up going to sleep after the stream.
How many donkey's years are in a human year?
I don't know, but donkey's years is a traditional British expression, and it just means a long time. You know, so do you say in Australia, or did you used to say in Australia when you're working, you're in collar?
No.
All right. My old man used to say, if you were working in London, it was rhyming slang. If you were in collar, you were working. It was an expression that was talking about a horse in a collar. You're in collar, you're working.
Well, there you go. No, I've never heard that. I mean, they may have said that in olden times on the mainland, but I can see, because I mean, you look at interviews of people on the street in the 60s, like 50s and 60s in Australia, even in Sydney. Yeah, and they really are very, very English, aren't they? Like back then, that sounded very English.
Yeah, and I mean,
and
Australian rhyming slang is quite close to Cockney rhyming slang. Possibly because like a lot of the crims who got sent to Australia were from London, so I guess that's why it got transferred.
Yeah, and they all had a really, really complex like argot for their criminal behaviour, especially. I think we talked about this once before, that the criminal activity in London itself was basically nearly parity between the respectables and the criminals. It was like 50-50 almost. You know, half the population was basically involved in some sort of crime. So you can imagine with that, the culture itself developed an insane amount of lingo and argot. I really need to read this Mayhew book, that journalist from the 19th century who went underground.
London Labour and the London Poor, I think it's called, isn't it, Chris?
I think so, something like that. I really need
and he's got this map which has got colours on it all over London with how poor it was. Yeah, it's Henry Mayhew, and it's called London Labour and the London Poor. It is a good book, although it's written like in 19th century English, so it's quite wordy, shall we say. Good to see Biarki in the chat. He's saying, you having a giraffe, which means you having a laugh, apparently. I really only know the old-fashioned stuff like, you walk up the Frog and Toad, which is the road. You go up the Apples and Pears, which is the stairs, and the trouble and strife's your wife.
Yeah, although famously in proper Cockney, they only said half of the expression.
Yeah, quite right. Quite right. And it was designed so the cops couldn't understand what was being said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Like the phone is the dog and bone, but they would actually call it the dog.
Yeah.
So they were saying the non-rhyming part.
I love it.
Yeah, and jump was a counter. So if someone was on the other side of the jump, it was a counter. And I'm not sure what the full expression for that is. Adam is correct. Septic tanks are Yanks in Australia, and yes, they are. Which I always thought was quite good. But
fucking septics.
Oh, look, I know some very good Americans. I don't like their government, but then I don't like the Australian or British governments either. So there you go. All right, Adam, you said you had quite a few things to talk about. Do you want to bring the first one up, unless you've got anything to say on the efficacy of blowjobs, of course.
No, they're based and wholesome. Get them if you can, if you're in that sort of relationship.
Get them if you can. Yes, that's what I would say too.
Go down the shop, get a blowy.
So yes, it's a nice light topic. This is the headline: billions dead as doomsday clock springs forward for daylight saving time. that's from the Babylon Bee, but it's obviously it's in reference to they moved up the doomsday clock, didn't they, in relation to current goings on
in Ukraine, etc.
Yeah, that was sort of what they were implying. I think they did actually mention Ukraine specifically, but
Yeah.
they always try to pretend it's other stuff. I mean, that whole thing seems really farcical. I've never really got the point of that, to be fair. But
the doomsday clock,
yeah.
Well, I kind of get it, and it was like used to be back in the day. It used to be based on how much tension there was between NATO and the Warsaw Pact, but these days it's ridiculous because it's entirely pushed by the West.
Yeah, but wasn't it really pushed by the West back then? I mean, it was kind of an instrument of sort of propaganda over the populace in the West.
The Russians, as far as I know, and I'm not Mitch, so I'm no expert on the Russians, but so far as I know, the Russians always said, even when they were the Soviet Union, that they wouldn't use nuclear weapons first, which is still their position. And, you know, given I was back then, I used to be a soldier, and like in the 80s, I was in the British Army. We didn't have enough men in NATO that if the Soviets had really decided to come across the border, we would have had to almost certainly have had to have resorted to nuclear weapons sooner rather than later, because we just didn't have enough men and equipment. And that is vastly more true today than it was back then, than it is now.
Yeah. Well, I will say that I think the Russian policy, I mean, I don't want to talk about the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, but I think the Russia policy is a bit more open-ended than ours, which is that they say that they reserve the right to use their WMDs if the sovereignty of their borders is jeopardized.
I don't think it's quite that. I think it's if the survival of Russia is jeopardized, is what they say. So it's not like a border invasion. It's if, like, you know, someone's getting close to Moscow. Yeah,
that's probably right.
Which is perfectly reasonable, and that's what I would expect Britain to do with its nuclear weapons too.
Yeah. But yeah, Adam in chat called it the Reddit clock, and that did when I was watching them do it, and it did seem that way. You know, like just a bunch of soy jacks all lined up, sort of pushing this little needle.
I'm just reading the article and looking at the people in it now. I'm like, this is just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but
why do we listen to these people?
We've got Britain and Germany and America all sending main battle tanks to Ukraine. At what stage do the Russians turn around and say, look, these guys are actually fighting us?
Yeah.
I mean, what would we have said if the Russians in Iraq or Afghanistan, particularly in Iraq, had been sending their most modern main battle tanks to the enemy?
But there was an example of this, wasn't there? Didn't they? Was it between Georgia and... or was it in Azerbaijan and Armenia? They were like the Russians supplied them with something like artillery pieces or something.
Yeah, but our blokes weren't fighting there, is what my point is. Our blokes weren't getting killed there in Georgia.
No, but the press kicked off about Russian interference. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is, if the Russians had sent their latest main battle tanks and what have you to actually kill our blokes, I reckon there would have been a big load of stink in the West about that. And of course they never did, by the way, but that's exactly what we're doing against the Russians in Ukraine.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, you see this as well. I mean, this is a good example with that whole thing with the Solomon Islands. You know, that's almost like a very soft version of the Ukrainian situation, but reversed.
With the Chinese, yeah.
Yeah, and suddenly then the logic is just completely on its head, you know. And of course, it's funny as well because it's a pro-Western agenda, which is fine. That's what we want, but it's just weird that it's permeated by a government that pretends to have no Western agenda, and actually will punish regular citizens for having anything resembling a Western agenda.
100% correct. Don't disagree with you at all, mate. I mean, Chris, you probably know the Solomon Islands, like for years, has got like millions and millions of dollars from the Australians. And all of a sudden turned around and said, oh no, we're going to let the Chinese build a base here. And of course, the Australians, rightfully enough, got very upset about that. But, you know, why is that different from what's going on in the Ukraine? You know, and the bits of Ukraine Russia is fighting to take are majority ethnic Russian. It's not like they're trying to take over Ukrainians. They're actually like liberating ethnic Russians. This is what I don't think many people in the West really realize.
If you don't want nuclear war with Russia, that's appeasement.
Yeah,
I don't want nuclear war with anyone. I don't want nuclear war with anyone because there's no winners. As soon as the nuclear war starts, we're all fucked.
That Julia Hartley Brewer did a tweet where she said, like, she posted some old map of like Ukraine with like the bits where Russia was occupying it, and then the it's like in blue and yellow, and it says like the index says like Ukraine, but then it says Ukraine but in yellow or something ridiculous. And she made up a stupid tweet where she goes how much of the UK would have to be sort of like given over to foreign forces before you'd be okay with like going to the peace table. She's essentially saying like we should continue to fight for Ukraine forever. And it just it's kind of a bit on the nose, isn't it? Like we have given over large swathes of the UK to foreign forces.
Yes, we absolutely have. Yes, we absolutely have.
Nuclear war. Nuclear war is preferable to Ukraine losing its precious democracy.
Yeah.
We must preserve democracy in Ukraine.
The most corrupt nation in Europe, even according to the United Nations.
But it's not as corrupt as Putin, so therefore it's good.
When are we going to get the?
We should be sending more money.
When are we going to get the? When are we going to get the memes of the sort of lipoed up, sort of bulbous looking Ukrainian women, and it's like worth fighting for underneath.
Fat body positive women are worth defending.
Yeah, I gotta appreciate. There must be some major cognitive dissonance for like all the lefties in the UK, where all the Ukrainians were complaining about living in places like Birmingham. They're like, I can't live here. These Muslims are dangerous. And they're just
you can't say things like that. You can't say things like that.
You need to be re-educated. You need to be re-educated.
You cannot say things like that, Chris. It's like you're racist if you say things like that.
But they are actually sending them to re-education things, aren't they? They actually
they are.
There was like this big black woman with these glasses on, and she's giving them all a talk. And there's a real sort of like mask slip moment as well, where she goes, they expect to come to England and it be full of English people, and then she sort of corrects herself and goes, but of course it is because I'm English too. So that was that gave me a chuckle, but yeah, so it's sort of that they're very quick to sort of revive a lot of these there are these propaganda pieces out there with like these sort of like quite sort of cute young looking Ukrainian women who are all dressed up in like army fatigues, so they suddenly know what it is that people are interested in, and it's not like peg leg fat black lesbians.
and as I'm sure Mitch would confirm, who's in the chat, you never see these women actually in the front lines at all, ever.
No.
You only see like videos of them in uniform in a parade somewhere, but they're never actually fighting anywhere. It's just a cop.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you would not send those delicious Israeli cuties to the front lines. You'd be hanging on to them for dear life.
Well, I mean, even
Yeah.
Israel, like, and people used to say, "Oh, yeah, women serve in the Israeli Defense Force and all the rest of it."
Serving the
But they
social media
didn't.
department.
And they did, yeah, exactly. They served in the social media department and what have you. They didn't serve in the infantry.
No, there's no like thousands of photos of male army personnel. They're all just these hot little cuties that it all gets posted on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, Adam is correct. I mean, these days, IDF women are doing TikTok lives these days defending Israel from getting trolled and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. That's what women do. They work in offices with air conditioning. They're not somewhere on the front line in a fucking trench. They're just not, because they're useless at that.
Mm.
But I mean, the other thing I think, before we move on to something else, is that you've got all these idiots going on about climate change and, you know, the climate change emergency and all the rest of it. And that apparently is like really vastly important. But like pushing the world towards a nuclear war, which would actually kill all of us and all the other life on Earth pretty much, that's not that serious. That's fine. Because Ukraine, you know?
Yeah.
It's just insanity. It's real insanity.
Here's why nuclear weapons may be a good thing.
Yeah, many a headline like that's been coming out. I did think when the whole thing kicked off that suddenly we were going to get a lot of shit libs who were going to be talking about the Holodomor, where previously they'd always like denied that it was ever a thing.
Never.
But that never happened. But then, of course, you look and actually, you know, you had that guy. What's that guy's name? Something Fox, who like flew out there like a year beforehand, and he's like, "Don't talk about the Holodomor. It's bad. It's bad. It undermines the Holocaust."
I noticed on British forces run by the British Ministry of Defence on YouTube this week, there was a remembering the Holocaust video. Why we particularly need to remember the Holocaust at this particular time, God knows how many years afterwards, I'm not quite sure, but, you know, apparently we do.
Such anti-Semitic.
Well,
commentary.
I mean, that was another story I was going to bring up. Actually, it's Rishi Sunak has said that they're going to they're going to force through the construction of that Holocaust memorial next to Parliament.
You're kidding me.
No, like, you know, could have done it for like you know, a hospital or a power station. But no,
is there going to be a great big sign on it saying X number of British and Old Commonwealth soldiers fought to stop this?
No, not at all, not ever. So yeah, that
just makes me angry, man.
I had to bring up the more positive story first about about the coming nuclear war before we went on to this one. But yeah, so yeah, that's what the Tories care about. They've decided that, and it's funny as well because I've seen loads of lefties and they're going like, oh, you know, the Tories are going to try and run the country into the ground because they know they're on the way out, and I'm like, dude, they're already on it. They've been on this for years.
Yeah.
But when you point out this mass immigration and Holocaust memorials, suddenly they don't see the issue. But yeah, and it's like they've been trying to push this through for a while because it's going to have a learning centre next to it as well.
Really?
Because, you know, you've got to learn from their mistakes of history, even though according to that narrative we were ostensibly on the good side. So, but
there will be very few like Anglo-Celtic white people to actually go and visit it in London because London's been a minority Anglo-Celtic real British city for many years now.
Well, I think that's why they're putting it next to Parliament, because that's like unironically one of the only last sort of largely white areas of London. Like, I actually went up to see a talk up there a while ago to the Methodist Hall, which is just around the corner. And it's like the last part of London where you can walk around and see largely white people about the place.
I don't know. It makes me very, very, very sad to hear this stuff.
Well, I mean, do you remember when they tried to put a memorial to the Holocaust on the moon?
What?
You're kidding me.
I can't remember what it was called.
They should do it. They should move all of the memorials.
Did the American Von Braun bloke who like ran the Apollo program possibly object? Like the V1 rocket inventor I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think it was Israel's first attempt to go to the moon.
Oh my God. This is just so fucking stupid. I'm sorry, it just is.
Hang on. There's already a Holocaust Memorial and Learning Centre in London. It's like
yeah. There's quite a few all over the place.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Just one more. We need just one more, and then
you always need another one.
We need to solve anti-Semitism by building these fucking monstrosities. Oh, what an ugly fucking thing that is too. Oh my God, the one in
have you seen the one in Miami? That's Bowden talked about that, and that's why I looked it up. And that one's particularly sort of grotesque looking.
Miami Holocaust Museum. Oh God, we must never forget.
Chris, we have.
Oh my God,
Chris, we have to be a bit careful because.
No, I'm not going to be spicy. I'm telling you, we should never forget that billions died.
Ever forget. No, never. Billions died.
6 billion died, and you cannot.
And no one in Britain or Australia or Canada or America or anywhere else died. Nobody else died. It was just those guys.
Adam, and that is horrendous. That is really horrible. I'm looking at close-ups of it. That is just what is wrong with these people? Like,
I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
But and Adam brought up in the chat, said there's one at the Imperial War Museum, which is massive. Yeah, it's the entire top floor. I went through it, and you go up there, and they make you. There's like a security guard outside that just makes sure that you've all turned your phones off before you go in. Like
the Imperial War Museum in Lambeth, Adam.
Yeah. In
the one with the big naval guns
out
outside.
Front. Yeah.
I used to go there like almost every week when I was a kid because I lived close to it. And I love military history, as you know. And there was a little bit about it, like mostly about British Army liberating camps and stuff like that, but not much.
Yeah. I mean,
like what it deserved, basically.
Besides that top floor and one other room where they've got some sort of art film piece in a little mini theatre about like colonial troops or something. It's actually, the rest of it's still pretty good. But yeah, that top floor, they've even got like the obligatory little like glass box of shoes in there.
Oh, God's sake.
It's not completely uninteresting, but yeah, it's they have got a good bit in there about Oswald Mosley and the black shirts in the pre-war period. But
when you say a good bit, is it good or is it?
Yeah, they have a whole section on spies and like the home front, and they've got a bit in there, not in the Holocaust bit, but elsewhere in the museum, and they've got like a bit, and it's pretty sort of straight down the middle. They don't seem to realize how kind of bad that makes them look, that they were they were ostensibly spying and tried to shut down an anti-war front.
Yeah, Mosley, of course, is well known because when war actually broke out in September 1939, he just came totally down on the British side. Yeah,
like straight away, and
even though he was then jailed for a bit.
Yeah, one of the first airmen to go down as well was a black shirt. And there was quite a few black shirts actually that died because quite a few of them were soldiers or were in the armed forces.
Yeah, because it's a military. Do you know Australia had something like that, Chris, in the interwar era, when they were building the Sydney Harbour Bridge? Actually, there was quite a strong Australian semi-fascist thing going on. But like Italian fascism, Mosley, by the way, was Italian style fascism, not Hitler style. But there was also an Australian group who were mostly ex-servicemen from World War One, who were kind of like Italian style fascists. And this was about the time they were building the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and they became quite popular for a while.
What were they called?
I can't remember now, mate. I'd have to go and look it up. And
So if I look up Australian fascist, it'll probably just say like any regular conservative person.
well, Italian fascists pre-World War II. So, like when they were building the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which was what, like late 1920s, something like around that time, I think.
Okay,
I don't want to do it because if I do it on my damn computer, I'll probably fuck up the stream. But yeah, definitely there was, and like their leader was like a major or a colonel. Or something.
It wasn't called the White Army, was it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And it was mostly ex-servicemen, like mostly ex-diggers from World War I.
Hmm. And I'm looking.
And I know they had a big rally when they opened the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which of course was partly a like a job creation program during the Great Depression. They marched across the thing.
The New Guard, I think it was.
That's right. It is. It's the New Guard. That's what they were called.
Adam said that in chat.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, the New Guard, Chris, is the guys, and these were guys very, very similar to Mosley, basically based on like Mussolini Italian type fascism, which, by the way, was not at all anti-Semitic.
Not that we have a problem with anti-Semitism.
Do you know what?
I have a big problem with it. Thank you very much.
Some of them. I have a problem with. Like, I don't want to judge everyone from one group in one single way. Many Italian fascists were Jewish.
Yeah, there was quite a few in that movement. Yeah, because a lot of them were part of the socialist movement before, and he sort of dragged them over.
Yes, quite correct. So, like many Italian fascists were Jewish, and like Italian Jews had no problem so long as Italy actually ran Italy. It was only when the Germans took over half of it that they had an issue.
Yeah, that's true. But also the Jewish diaspora in Italy was much smaller and wasn't doing the same stuff that the Jewish diaspora in Germany was doing.
Possibly, mate. I'm no expert on this stuff, and I'm not going to get involved with it on a YouTube stream.
I mean, we're never really going to know all that much. I mean, I just look at, let's say, what's his name, Arthur Bryant's book on it, and a couple of others.
Arthur Bryant's a good old-fashioned historian. Adam says Mussolini's secretary was Jewish. I mean, some people say Mussolini's mistress was also Jewish, but I mean, But she was killed by commies, so there you go, and hung up on a meat hook. That's how good commies are. So, but we have to be very careful. We are on Sudan's platform,
Well, on that note, I'm just going to also point out that if the narrative that we may or may not be talking about were actually true, which I could well believe it was, or do well believe it was, MI5. You kind of have to assume that surely where is the memorial to like the based American GIs or whatever, or the British troops or whatever it was. There was one person in particular, someone was talking about this. I think it was Carl Benjamin actually on Twitter. And there was like all these sorts of boomer cons. And one of the points they kept making over and over again was, actually, they did know that the Holocaust was happening as early as 1942. And it's like, well, what's the alternative?
It wasn't happening in 1942, so that's nonsense for us.
Right? But it doesn't matter when it was. Like, what's the alternative? Do they think you should have just thrown like more Anglo youths into the meat grinder faster, like to save the chosen people? Like, what's the end goal there?
The only thing I've heard is that people say, "Oh, we should have bombed the camps," which I presume would have killed the people in them. But I mean, that's just me. I mean, maybe I'm just stupid.
Yeah, didn't we actually bomb one by mistake at one point?
As far as I know, the Brits and the Americans never bombed concentration camps, and deliberately. They bombed quite a lot of French civilians, surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
But not concentration camps. But I have heard people saying, if only the Allies had bombed like the Reinhardt camps, which were the big time death camps, which were all, by the way, like in eastern Poland and so on, like right at the extreme range of Allied bombers anyway. And that just because it was such a long range, that would have killed loads of the bomber pilots and crew. But yeah, never mind. But we should have bombed those. But I'm just thinking, 1,000, 2,000 and 500 pound bombs dropping all over you is probably going to kill you even quicker than the bloody Germans would,
But yeah, I mean, all of that aside, the fact that it's a memorial accompanied by a learning centre, and the fact that there are memorials to these things literally all over the world. There's quite a few of them actually in Ukraine, oddly enough. There's like precious no memorials about the Holodomor in Ukraine, but there are loads of memorials to the Holocaust.
Even despite, what's the name, Mitch? Remind me in the chat. What's the name of that famous dude in Ukraine who like killed an awful lot of Jewish and Polish people? Who's like really, really popular in Ukraine even to this day. People do the Azov battalion, for example, totally support.
Well, isn't he considered that guy in particular? I can't remember his name either, but wasn't he
Bandera,
kind of the spiritual founder of Azov?
Stepan Bandera. There you go. Like this guy would actually take his blokes into a village which was either Polish or Jewish, he didn't care, and would just like literally chop everyone up, from old men to little old ladies to babies. He would literally go and chop them up, and that's one of the most popular Ukrainian nationalists. Is Stepan Bandera.
And funny enough as well, when the Germans were passing through on the way to the Eastern Front, there are videos you can find online of like Ukrainian women coming out and praying for their safe passage, and
giving them salt and bread and all this. Yes, I've seen that.
So when you kind of look at it like that, or you look at like the amount of Holocaust memorials in America isn't that surprising when you consider like the population over there and how much money they have and stuff like that. But it definitely seems to be used by an elite, not necessarily Jews on the street, but an elite in a very particular way.
Yes.
As a sort of guilt tripping mechanism.
Yeah. And like, why does Britain need one when Britain totally fought against that shit all the way through World War II?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the funny thing when you sort of look into it, is why do we have some here already, and why are we building more, and why is the government so big on building more?
Yeah. Why does it matter? I mean, Britain has never been a nation that kills loads of women and children. Never has, despite all the lies of the
problem is the problem is it's you got to remember that it's basically the primary thing that holds them at such a high position in all their host nations, is this this aspect of the eternal victim. But if they're once the last of the people that actually remember it, or the children of the people that were around it with the living memory, once they die, they like anything else, it sort of just gets swept away. So they have to keep it alive in order to keep their legitimacy in whatever place they're in. Otherwise, they're just I'm not going to say anything more.
But it's like where was I going to go with this? I'm also operating on not a lot of sleep, but it's like they've just put away this woman, haven't they, who was like a typist in one of the summer camps, we'll call it, and she was very young at the time, and I think she was only in there.
Sorry, Adam. What you mean they put her in jail?
Yeah.
Well, and she must be 90?
Something like that, yeah, very old. There's no survivors. Like occasionally you'd see, wouldn't you? Like every couple of years there'd be like they'd find another one and he'd be like carted off to prison. And they've kind of run out of them at this point. So you
Mm.
kind of wonder what they're gonna wheel out as the sort of reminder and scapegoat that they'll event, the blasphemer, the heretic that they've got to wheel out at some point and
Yeah,
do something
well,
with
I'm
it.
sorry, I'm bored of this shit, man. Look, do you know what? I don't believe in killing women and children, Susan. I'm seriously, I don't. I don't believe in killing women and children of any race, creed, or color. I just don't. I was a British soldier.
Thank
and,
God.
like, we don't do that.
I'm glad you pointed that out, but yeah, carry
Yeah,
on.
I was
Yeah,
worried.
look, we don't do that. Like, British soldiers don't do it. Australian soldiers don't do it. Canadians don't.
Okay, but you're still getting the memorial. Sorry, Duke.
Yeah, I'm fuck off. I hate that shit.
Yeah, I know.
fucking hate
But
that
this is
shit.
the thing. I mean, obviously we've gone a bit off. We've gone in talking about this whole thing. Really, I was just pointing out that the Tory government are kind of scummy, and this is
Look,
this
at the next
is
general
the hill they've
election.
decided to die on.
Thank you, Armin. You've given me my thing here. At the next general election, and this is what this channel is going to be pushing until the next general election, do not vote Conservative. Do not vote so-called Conservative. Do not vote Labour. Do not vote Lib Dems. Do not vote Watermelon Greens. Vote for anyone else. Anyone else.
So do you reckon that would have never happened under the Labor Party, that memorial? Sorry to bring that back up again.
No, more likely to happen under them, for sure.
Really? I suppose Corbyn's gone now, so
slightly more. Yeah, Corbyn has gone. Absolutely, slightly more likely.
I'd have Corbyn as Prime Minister any day.
Well, I wouldn't, but I mean,
well, it's just like we have this sort of 2020 retrospective on it, and it's like you're looking at the sort of policies he stood for, and you're looking at what the Tories are actually enacting, and I'm like, it's actually
not much difference. Not much difference, man.
If anything, the Tories are worse.
Yep.
than what Jeremy Corbyn, because Jeremy Corbyn was actually, he might have been a scumbag, but he was still principled. He still had principles and actual positions on things.
Yeah, but
like, it's quite rare these days.
What people get wrong about Corbyn is, whilst he had these ideas about, let us say, the modern Middle East, he didn't transfer that back to World War II at all.
No.
So don't think he did, because he didn't.
But at the same time, like because this is one of the things you see. I mean, I think I said this maybe last week or before. Like, you can kind of see how the left just has no dissident sphere, because Corbyn had, he has a bunch of positions, if you read through his manifesto, that are just straight out of like the establishment playbook, like expansion of managerialism, like increasing, like he basically wanted to expand the franchise, and by the franchise I mean free school meals to everyone. So like everyone from every background, no matter how rich their parents were, would get like free school meals, which of course is just a massive transfer of wealth to sort of government departments. Well, because it's just more managerialism, isn't it? But
I'm just feeling like we've gone a long way on this stream against Dear Susan, which we really shouldn't, because we'll get cancelled if we do. Because the YouTube is not a free speech platform at all. So we do have to be a little bit careful. Well, look, do you know what? It should be a bit more.
My policy is free speech for me, but not for thee.
Yeah, which like kind of works if you're multi-billionaires, and when we're not, it doesn't really. But yeah.
But
yeah, yes, I don't know. Look, as far as I'm concerned, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of British and Old Commonwealth soldiers died in World War II to stop the stuff they're trying to give us an education centre about. So there you go.
But it's like but the funny thing is, so he'll do all that stuff, but then he kind of has no he had no grasp on what the establishment was. Like, for a guy that seemed to spend his entire his entire life banging on about like the British colonial and imperial establishment, he didn't understand that he shouldn't talk about a conflict happening on the complete other end of the Mediterranean in a run up to an election. Such a tiny thing that really shouldn't affected anyone, and he just couldn't.
Are you talking about Corbyn?
Yeah, Corbyn on Israel and Palestine.
Yeah, and of course Corbyn would never remember the British soldiers who the Israeli terrorists in 1948 murdered, and they captured them and then hung them and murdered.
Well, I mean, the thing that he got caught up in more was the 1993 Munich. Was it 93? Something like that, somewhere around there, like 92, 93.
Yeah.
Munich terrorists, who were the orchestrator of which was killed in a Israeli airstrike. In the 90s, in the 92, 93, sometime like that. And he just couldn't seem to. He just couldn't seem to they did a whole thing about it where they went and laid a reef there, and he should have just stayed away, right? He should have had no interest in that whatsoever, but he couldn't help himself, and he didn't seem to understand when they pull him up about like his comments on Hamas, how he couldn't just sit there and speak truth to power. He just didn't seem to understand how power worked at all. It was kind of bizarre, and he was principled, but it was just a shame that half of his principles were fucking retarded.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look at the Royal David Hotel bomb attack by Israeli terrorists in what was then British Palestine in 1948, which killed loads of women and children as well.
And it was believed by MI5 that information was supplied to them by Emmanuel Shinwell, the Labour MP.
What a surprise. And the bloke who used to run the Daily Mirror, I mean, let me remember now. What was the bloke who used to run the Daily Mirror? What was his name? Was it Max? It was
Maximilian something or other.
Maxwell something or other.
Is it Maxwell?
Yeah, the bloke whose daughter is like still in prison in America.
Threw himself off a yacht, didn't he? Because he
threw himself off a yacht. Absolutely did. And his daughter is now in prison, I believe, in the UK after her co-conspirator supposedly hung himself in a ridiculous position from which he couldn't possibly have hung himself. But who knows? It's all a conspiracy theory, isn't it, really?
Well, the Epstein position.
Yeah. Robert Maxwell, he was not Mossad. Of course he wasn't.
But yeah, so I mean, Corbyn is at least entertaining to listen to on foreign policy, especially when he just came out. He had like no barometer and just came out and just like kind of said it how it is on the whole Israeli-Ukraine situation. He still said it from a largely leftist position, but it was a bit more centered than any of the other conversations going on.
He wanted to surrender to Argentina in the Falklands.
Yes, he did. Like again, half his positions, half his positions are gay, but
yeah. I mean, look, this is the thing that the dissident right doesn't always get right, in my opinion. Is we look at one thing that someone does and we say, that's really based and we'll support them, like the Taliban or whoever it might be. Doesn't matter. We'll say, no, those guys are great because they're against X, Y, and Z. But we don't look at all their other fucking positions.
To be fair, I will say that the Taliban simping was quite rare on the right. I think people were overplaying that a bit at the time.
Well, I saw quite a lot of it, to be honest.
Well, maybe on Gab, but
no, not on Gab. Actually, funnily enough, Gab is like these days. Gab is quite middle of the road for the most.
Well, it's just full of boomers, isn't it? So.
Now, the love affair with the Taliban, I think, was really just the chuckle as they sort of entered into the gyms and took videos of themselves being funny.
Yeah.
And then once the novelty of that wore off and the gravity of the situation sort of, re-emerged in people's heads that, okay, no, these people are actually fucked and we probably shouldn't be lionizing them in any way. And all of the all the people on the right saying like inshallah and all that sort of stuff is all very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Well, look, I will just say this. I spoke earlier about one of the videos on British forces paid for by British taxpayers, run by the Ministry of Defence in UK on YouTube this week was remembering the Holocaust. All right. Do you know what the other one was? The situation of women in Afghanistan. Why do we care about the situation of women in Afghanistan? I'm not an Afghan. I'm certainly not a woman. And I don't care about the situation of women in Afghanistan at all. Not even slightly.
Do you know they had a mural to George Floyd in was it Jalalabad? No, it wouldn't have been Jalalabad. It was one of the cities.
It could have been Jalalabad. That's a pretty big town.
Yeah.
But it would. But you know, you also had British feminists being sent over there to tell these fucking idiot Afghan women in classrooms about how they were victims of the patriarchy. Didn't that go well?
Yeah, Steve says it's Kabul. Yeah, that's probably right. It probably was Kabul. But yeah. So yeah, but you know, British soldiers fought and died for that. For feminists and George Floyd murals in Kabul.
Look, you'll pardon me if I don't laugh. You'll pardon me if I don't.
No, I have to laugh because you'd fucking cry afterwards. It's horrific.
500 British soldiers at least died for that shit.
Yeah.
And many of them were fathers with children. And they died for absolutely sweet fuck all.
Yep.
And that was the most insulting part about it was, sorry. Oh, shit. That was the most insulting part about it was that, the amount of people that died for literally no fucking reason. It's just
nothing whatsoever. No gain whatsoever.
As soon as they all left, it was like nothing even happened.
Yeah, it was all.
They had billions of dollars worth of gear.
The Brits even had to take the war memorial home because the Afghans would have destroyed it.
Yeah.
And these were good men, don't get me wrong. The blokes who were doing the actual fighting were good blokes. They were following orders. God, can't say that these days, can you? Because the Germans said that in World War II. But they were just doing what they were told.
Yeah, you can't pick and choose what wars you fight.
No, if you're an ordinary soldier, you can't. You're sent where you're sent, and you can either be a good bloke or a not good bloke.
Yeah, and if you're kicking up a fucking fuss about it, then you cause a problem for your fellow soldiers. So just got to go with it. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But that's how you sort of guarantee that you do have an effective army, the one that's strictly hierarchical and follows orders, and they don't question them. So. But to a degree, like if you had a rogue one that was like, just go in there and kill all the women and children, obviously, I feel like many of them would make an autonomous decision on that. But otherwise, it's like you just got to do what you got to do.
Look, I really believe that the guys who went over to Afghanistan from the USA and Canada had the third highest casualties after America and Britain, and also Australia. They were good blokes. They were just doing their job. And as people have said in the chat, as a former British soldier and as a former South African soldier, I'm not in favor of just killing women and children willy-nilly. I'm just not. It doesn't go well with any of our armed forces, and I don't think any of us would do it. So, but it's just bullshit. And it goes back to the previous thing we were talking about with the Holocaust and all the rest of it, is like most of our guys don't do that shit. It's just not our style.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, this is where like obviously people come in and talk about like containment, right? It is that, you know, military recruitment is down across the books. I mean, this is another thing you see. It occupying the same space, usually done by Gen Xers, occupying the same space as like, you know, the leftoids like Corbyn and that, is they will bring in this class element into talking about warfare, where they'll say, oh, it's the poor fighting and dying for the rich. It's like, well, the containment that they're going to do is obviously going to blow any semblance of people believing in that wide open, because they're going to have to appeal to, it's going to be largely sort of white English young men, or British young men, and in America obviously, you know, Americans, and so on and so forth, because they do need these people to still sign up for the military. They do still need that power for interventionist policy abroad, and the maintenance of the hegemony of the US State Department.
Well, I mean, look, in World War One, for example, which was a really bloody and pointless war, totally pointless war in my opinion. World War One, British officers took proportionally vastly higher casualties than British upper ranks.
Mm.
So your middle and upper class twats, in inverted commas, who were always saying, follow me, boys. And they were the guys who got shot with the machine guns and the artillery first.
Mm. Yeah, I see you posted a video in Discord. Was it you? About the lions led by donkeys myth?
I didn't post that, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I've seen it before, but yeah, I didn't post it, but I have seen it. And it's true. Like the British officers had a far lower life expectancy on the Western Front in World War One than British upper ranks did, because they were expected to expose themselves and go over the top first and say, follow me, chaps, and all this kind of shit, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
A bit like if you watch, there's quite a good movie about Kipling's son. And Kipling's son was desperate to join the British military.
Is that My Son Jack, the movie?
Yeah.
That's very sad, that film, to be fair.
It really is, because like Kipling wanted to get him into the Royal Navy, which is what I would have done too, if he'd been my son. But like he was so impatient that he couldn't. So Kipling in the end went to see Lord Roberts, who he knew, who had been the commander-in-chief in South Africa in the Anglo-Boer War, and he got him a place in the Irish Guards. And of course, like, you know, second or third big attack the Irish Guards did, because Jack Kipling was a brave bloke. He did that follow me blokes thing and got himself killed, which like happened to like thousands and thousands and thousands of blokes.
Yeah, but that structure was also what made that army so effective and so good for such a long time.
Oh yeah,
it was just that sort of mechanized death of World War One kind of impacted on that military structure quite hard from a purely sort of demographic deaths perspective. I mean, because that really gutted like large parts of the English aristocracy as well, or the British aristocracy as well, or what was left of it.
Yeah. I mean, look, when you look at the 1920s. What you have to look at is two things. It's number one, what you were just saying, and it's like most of the British leadership was dead, like the good British leadership who had joined the army or the navy, they were dead. But also most of the middle class and good working class dudes were also dead, because they'd also joined the army. And so much of the army had been killed. And to a slightly lesser degree, the same thing happened in countries like Canada and Australia and New Zealand and South Africa, because you had the same thing happening, you know. And in the 1920s, it was just totally different to the 1890s, because all of those good blokes who could have been leaders, whether they might have been aristocratic leaders or middle class leaders, or even working class talented leaders. They were all gone. They were killed. The vast majority of them were just killed. And for no purpose whatsoever. No purpose. I mean, unless you think raising the Soviet Union was a good idea, just for no purpose. And obviously for America to start taking over the world. Unless you think those two things are good, World War I was completely pointless.
But in addendum to the comment that Tomb of Armenius put up, Biarki also made a comment about the police recruitment is way down. We're actually having it. He said in Australia, but we're actually having the same problem here in the UK. And funny little side note actually, because they've basically also just been criticised because the Met Police has taken on a bunch of basically police recruits that can't speak much English, and they were described as functionally illiterate. And some politicians were out defending it, and they were going like, London is going to be like minority white in the next 10 years anyway, so it needs to reflect the city more anyway.
We need a Pakistani police.
Yeah, it's literally just celebration parallax. Like if any of us had said that, it's you're a racist. There's no proof of that. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
they say it's just.
Why would any good, self-respecting person want to join the UK police right now?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, recruitment is right down, and I kind of sit there and I think, well, like good, English people need to stop propping up these systems of this regime that just fundamentally hates them.
Well, yeah, especially when the police are literally not doing a fucking thing about any of the stuff that matters. It's like, like you are no longer an effective institution. You're just the brown shirts for the regime now that police people's speech before you police any of the tragedies that actually go on.
Yeah,
Chris, they wander along the road waving gay flags.
Yeah, the little mini pride parades that seem to be on all year round. But yeah, like there are whole towns, there are whole cities in the UK where they haven't solved like a single burglary in months, if not a year.
Yeah, and if anyone calls up to report a burglary, they'll probably just be like, "Well, commiserations to you."
Yeah, they won't come out for days at a time sometimes, but that guy that posted the trans flag with the swastika on it, he had police like at his house, I think the same day.
Yeah. That's a low risk.
Or do a social media post which says anything bad about trans people, i.e. the mentally ill, and the cops will be at your door the same day. Or the next day.
Yeah, Alice Liddell in chat kind of pointed out that I made a bit of a mistake. London was minority white in 2011. Yeah, sorry, they meant minority white British. I might actually have to go back and check the article because they might have said minority white, but I read it as minority white British. But yeah, so.
I always do that, which is a mistake, of course, because these days there are so many European foreigners in the UK. But yeah, I kind of always think no.
Yeah, it's a black pill when you realise that London is like minority white, but it's like of that minority that are actually English is like infinitesimal. It's like, oh my God.
I watched a video today about a guy fishing a small river in like the outskirts of London, but he was absolutely in London, like there were railings all along the damn river. And of the 5 people who spoke to him, one was a Pakistani who wanted to eat the fish, and he said, "Nah, we don't do that here." And the other 3 were all Eastern Europeans of some description who didn't know what the fish were.
Most likely Polish.
And I'm not absolutely against Eastern Europeans, but I reckon they're better in Eastern Europe than Britain. But that's just me.
Kick them all out.
Victor Calero says, when will the majority of London be illiterate?
Yeah, probably already is.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
It probably already is.
All right, people are asking me about a movie which I know, and there's at least, I know the novel that it's based on, and there are at least 4 versions of this as films. Have you seen the 39 version of Four Feathers? Yes, I have. That's the Alexander Korda version, who was Jewish, by the way, and apparently gave Churchill money, but I don't know. Loads of Jewish people gave Churchill money. God knows why, but they did apparently. But yeah, I have seen that film, and it's an excellent film. And like I said, there's about 4 versions of the 39 Feathers. I don't like the most recent one much because it was written by an Indian dude, and it shows. The others are okay.
So the most recent one is kind of like has a sort of running with wolves sort of line through it. Is that the same in the older version?
No, the modern one, it like starts off with a roughy toughy rugby game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like a running with wolves story because he kind of goes native, doesn't he?
Well, look, it was the one that we used to use, Adam, when we did our 39 words stuff.
Yeah, 37 words. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but still,
37 words. Sorry.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't like it because it's written by an Indian and it shows it's written by an Indian. Because the roughy toughy rugby game at the beginning, is supposed to show how vile and rough and tough the British were, which, the British were pretty rough and tough, but they weren't vile. I mean, I don't know about you, mate, but like my son had his name put down for a rugby club when he was like 7 because that was the only way he could get into it. So yeah, the earlier versions are better, in my opinion. And what I've never got about the book, even the novel, I've never got how any British officer or any British soldier, for that matter, could decide that, like, when his regiment is sent overseas for active service, he could resign at that point and not be called a coward. Because and no 19th century officer would have thought that. I'm sorry, they just wouldn't. Like, he might have, when he got to the Sudan, he might have done his best not to see any active service or whatever. But there's no way he would have fucking resigned. Because, of course, everyone was going to call him a coward. I mean, a private British soldier who did that would be called a coward if he resigned the moment his regiment, and not that privates were allowed to, of course, but had he resigned the moment his regiment was sent overseas, he would have been called a coward, and everyone knows that. It's like common sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you resigned 2 years before, okay, fair enough, you've had enough of being in the army. But, like, if suddenly your regiment is sent to the Sudan for active service and you hand in your resignation, everybody is going to call you a coward. That's just common sense, and it's what blokes will always do.
Yeah.
So I've never quite understood that book, to be honest. And it's a novel, and it's not a bad novel. The bloke redeems himself in the end. But I think the premise is based on this bloke is deeply in love with this girl, and he says, "No, I'm not going to do the military anymore. I'm just going to love you." Is fucking childish. Like, yeah, sure, do your war, come home, love your wife. That's fine. You can do that. perfectly all right. But you can't resign just as your regiment goes to war and expect everyone not to think you're a complete coward and an arse.
Indeed.
Because it's a men thing, you know?
Yeah. But to take it back to the original topic, which is about, I mean, we started off quite a while ago talking about UK elections and voting for who. And I just wanted to bring up this thing. It's called it's by a group called Stats for Lefties, right? So it's not going to be great, but they basically produced this this map based on people polling or a vote that was done, and they found that, I mean, this is obviously trash polling, right? But I still think it's kind of interesting. The polls suggest that the Tories at the next election would win just 10 seats, and that Labour would get 549.
I think that's not unrealistic.
No, well, they don't seem to include the Reform Party in the map when they
Yeah,
present the data on the
look,
map,
I
although they
think
do have it in the actual data set for some reason.
Yeah, I think Reform will get more than that. And I
Yeah,
know
I mean, they
get
basically
slagged
just
off.
they're not projecting anything. They're literally just taking like polling as it exists now, and then they're just like, oh yeah, this is. But then they're like projecting it for Labour based on what it could be after, you know, a couple of years of campaigning, which is a bit weird.
Well, a year and a half now, isn't it?
Well, yeah. But it's kind of funny as well, because it's like you go through some of the responses to this, and it's just all these people, and they're like, oh yeah, it's because like strikes and people are upset over. One of them literally said like people are protesting in the opposition to bigotry, that the Tories won't do anything about that. That's why they're getting wiped out. It's very copy.
Yeah, it's not like looking at the real attitudes of British people. It's like coming out with lefty bullshit, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I get into arguments with this about people like John Cavalier, etc. We have in Britain, we have to destroy the so-called, in inverted commas, conservative party to have any chance of survival. We have to destroy them. They have to be totally destroyed. I don't care if some of them move over to other parties. That's cool.
Well, I don't know. I think you have to be a bit careful about that.
You don't want
a bunch of shit from the Tories.
Yeah, I've seen guys saying that. I'm not sure if it's you, Armin, but I have seen people saying that, and I don't really believe it. I'm more than happy if 10 Conservatives want to move over to Reform. Great. See, I don't like Reform. I don't like Richard Tice one little tiny bit. I just want the Conservatives to be destroyed. That's my only deal.
I mean, I've joined Reform, and
Good.
I'm just trying to get them to organise locally, because I just want to get to disaffected Tories, essentially.
Yes, 100%.
But you know, at the same time, you can do some real damage in there by like bringing them up on their poor message discipline and trying to reform them. And what you end up getting is like Tory light. It'll probably be pretty lame. It's not going to like save the West, right? But if you can punish the Tories and then maybe still put the founding of a new opposition into, you know, a couple of seats, you've contributed something at the end of the day.
Look, I totally agree. I'm not suspecting for 1 second.
Adam's take is perfectly correct.
Yeah, I think that as well. Except I don't think our input is insignificant. I think it's worth doing.
I mean,
because you and I, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, probably would have been right-wing Tories.
I mean, the thing is that 10 based guys in a single constituency can actually do a lot.
Yep.
I mean, if you went to most Tory strongholds, and you and 9 other good friends went and signed up, you'd be like the sizable group in that sort of monthly Tory party meetup.
100%. Totally agree with you, mate. And look, again, I don't think we're going to totally change everything at all. But the Conservatives, and I'm sorry, I have to say this again, the so-called Conservatives, in air quotes, because they're not.
You could just call them
under
capital C Conservatives.
Rishi Sunak, have to be destroyed. They have to be. And if we don't do that, we're fired. And Adam in the chat says, I wish I had your optimism. I don't have any optimism at all, Adam.
I wish I could call it optimism.
Yeah, so do I. But if we don't do this, then I don't know what chance we have, and I think it's none.
Well, the thing is, some people say, and like, I mean, I think you said this earlier, Chris. Like, would Labour actually really be worse? I think they would still be a little worse because they'd see it as such a massive win, as a complete vindication of what they believe, regardless of how retarded that is.
Yeah. Imagine the laws they'll bring in, because the right-wing Conservatives never change anything, never bring any new laws in, and never get rid of any left-wing laws. Imagine what.
Right, but what I was going to say is it doesn't matter whether they're worse. You need to punish traitors.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, I'm saying that as if I have any actual real sway over this, but whether I do or not, that's the bottom line. Traitors need to be punished. If people ostensibly claim to be your guys and then they just stab you in the back repeatedly this often, they need to be culled.
100%, mate. 100%. We've got to do something, and to me, this is our only chance. It's a slim chance, but a slim chance is better than no chance. That's my honest view about this. I know that some people like Richard will say, "Oh no, it never worked, mate." Blah 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 blah. And he's probably right, but we've got a slim chance to no chance. Let's go for the slim chance. That's my honest view: is go for the slim chance, destroy the Conservatives, and hopefully have a new party on the right, which initially ain't going to be all that great, but it can get changed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to be any new party on the right has to be ostensibly right wing. It has to actually be a right wing party from the get go, and it needs to be laid out as such. It needs to be completely unapologetic about its position. Yeah, and the thing is, it actually starts from quite a strong position because its small size makes it immensely agile. But well, here's another thing though, right? It will probably actually be a reformed current party that will just change its name and change its leadership, because starting an actual new political party in the UK is really difficult.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, no, it just is. Like, legally, it's really difficult. You can't as a new political party, you can't even open a bank account for I think a few years.
I don't disagree with anything you say there. I mean, we just got to break the Conservatives. They've got to be destroyed because they are not Conservatives. I mean, Rishi Sunak is not Conservative. He's not even fucking British. Yeah.
And Adam points out Cameron, as far as I know, loads left the party over the gay marriage scandal he's talking about. Yeah, just in Theresa May's constituency alone, I think like 45 or 40% of people left the party over it.
Yeah, and I know that part of the world. It's like a fairly conservative part of the world outside of the town. But Alex Liddell says in the chat, "Bitch, yeah, but don't forget D-Day and the Battle of Britain laughing at." Well, do you know what? When you talk about don't forget D-Day and Battle of Britain, my grandfather went over on D+3, and he was one of the most entirely British nationalist blokes you could ever meet in your entire life. And I'm pretty sure most of the dudes involved in the Battle of Britain were the same. So what you got to do is don't chuck out the baby with the bathwater. Those men were very, very right-wing nationalist British dudes. So I'm sorry, Alice Little, but I don't agree with you about that.
Yeah, but their memories that you use to promote all this stuff, though.
Yeah, their memory is used badly. Absolutely it is. But I'm talking about the real blokes. The blokes
Sure.
who did that. They were British, English, British white nationalists, and really didn't like foreigners at all, even like European foreigners. That was what they were really like. And so I get fed up with people like Addis Little, 1872, coming out with shit like that.
Yeah. But I think they still got a point, though. I mean, they just said it's like biscuit tin types. Yeah, it is. It is
all
kind of
right,
biscuit tin
biscuit tin
nationalism.
types. What's your avatar there, Adam? And is it a Spitfire pilot having his hair cut?
Yes.
Do you reckon he was probably like a British nationalist dude? Because I reckon he probably was.
Well, he's reading a James Buchan novel, so he might be a bit of a dirty liberal. But
Oh no,
Always.
come
I
on,
like to
James.
think
But
that-
James Buchan wasn't bad. Come on.
No,
I
he wasn't
always
that
thought I always thought you were a face fag, and that was you. I was wrong.
bad. No, I'm not. I'm not this Aryan looking, sadly.
No, this is a red-headed British Spitfire pilot, mate. Do you know what?
Yeah.
I'm so good at my World War II military aircraft, I can tell that's a Spitfire just from that little tiny bit that we can see. So
Yeah.
there you go. But yeah, no, but they were actually good blokes. They were not lefties at all, and they're just portrayed as lefties today because it suits our fucking government to do so.
Yeah, but it's also one of those things where you're not going to win on that argument unless you own the means of media manufacture.
Well, all right. We will probably convince a few people this evening, I reckon. But you're right. We're not going to win on the scale of the biased brainwashing corporation or whatever.
Well, it's like it's kind of like Say's law, right? The idea that as an organization increases in size, I think it's in relation to the square root of that number. Start to make up 50% of its work capacity or some such. It can get measured in a lot of different ways, and of course the idea is that as an organization gets bigger, it becomes less efficient. And I just kind of slightly mentioned that when I was talking about mobile smaller parties, but of course when it comes to propaganda, it's completely inversed. The larger body always has an enormous amount of sway, because they can get there first. They can saturate with their arguments to a much greater extent. So it's kind of one of those things where I just think, we'll do a stream about it. People will chat about it. It's kind of an interesting topic, but as a form of actual political expression, it's kind of one of those things where you're best off just not really bringing it up until you actually have the means to really project it out there.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff. Lumbar makes a good point. I like my granddad. And I think most of us in like Western Anglo-Celtic nations, like Britain and Australia and Canada, etc., we like our granddads.
No, I think he's saying just like my granddad.
Yeah, but we do like our granddads. And they did fight against the Germans. And you'll notice I call them the Germans rather than anything else.
I use Germans as a pejorative.
Mate, I'm not. Listen, I'm
should.
not a German. I'm not a German. I know some good Germans,
and I feel frustrated because my use of my pejorative use of the Germans is very different to how, say, like a common leftist would conceive of them being like privileged white Germans who did naughty things. I just dislike Germans. They're very irritating people.
Yeah, they can be. I've met them on holiday, and they can be.
I'll be right back.
But I also have friends who are Germans, so but I would just say, one of the reasons, like you're never going to win doing a third position story in like a Anglo-Celtic country is because so many of us, our grandfathers and great-grandfathers, fought against them.
Mm.
And you're not going to get... Alice Liddell is even saying in the chat, my great-uncle died on HMS Hood, for fuck's
Yeah, they
sake.
also said they respect their ancestors. It's just how the myth is made against us and the Churchill cult. I mean, that is the thing. The record does need to be corrected.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's-
And
there's
have I not tried to do that, Armin?
Sure,
Have
sure, but
not
I
done
think there's a
anti-Churchill?
time and a place, and I don't think streams on YouTube are, they're good for us. They're kind of like, they're entertaining, and it's good to kind of keep the sort of spirit of historical revisionism, sort of the wheels of it turning over. But ultimately this is something that has to take place when we actually have some power and we get the ability to actually put this stuff out there.
For God's sake, I hope
Like
we
Kanye
do.
West, but less black, I suppose.
Yeah, not Kanye West at all, but yeah, or Nick Fuentes, but yeah. Lumber is saying my granddad's first posting was HMS Royal Oak, which was like the battleship that was sunk in Scapa Flow very early in World War II, with a huge loss of life, by the way. But yeah, I don't know. Guys, I'm going to the toilet. Chris, Adaman, talk for like, I don't know, 2 minutes.
Oh, bloody hell. I don't do work on Sundays. Yeah,
I did
for
have
some
a third
reason
topic, but I can't actually remember what it even was.
But for some reason, ever since I saw that photo, I just imagined you as looking exactly like that guy, just like this fiery redheaded bloke. But how wrong I was. Is that a pipe he's smoking?
Yes, yeah.
Oh God, that's so based.
It's a good.
We need to return. We need to return. I need to start replacing my cigar smoking with pipe smoking because cigars are too expensive here, and it's a big commitment to sit through ones because I like the big ones and they're very tasty. But as I said, it takes ages to get through one, a couple of hours. I need just a pipe so I can just have a 5 or 10 minute little puff and then go back inside.
Yeah, I mean that's I still smoke the odd cigar here and there, but I'm mostly entirely pipe now.
I say you actually smoke a pipe as well. God, when I was over there, I was just amazed when I was at the event. It's like literally every second kid, like they're all Zoomers and they're all smoking pipes. What is? Yeah. And I was thinking about like when I first encountered it because I've literally never seen a kid smoke a pipe in my life. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is like gay and LARPing. And then I sort of came to realize, no, they actually all unironically enjoy smoking tobacco. I'm in one of their Discord servers and they're like just constantly posting, new types of tobacco and giving like a full review of it. And it's actually quite amazing, the tobacco culture that's in the far right. I love it.
It's pretty good actually. And I kind of used to worry if it weren't getting a little bit LARPy that people were just like, oh yeah, got to smoke the old Marlboro Reds and just get a whole generation of young people just smoking again. But it's all right. It's nice bit of leisure drinking, nice bit of leisure smoking on the right.
I'll still like stand pretty hard against smoking cigarettes. I think cigarettes are fucking terrible. But tobacco in and of itself is wonderful, especially in the form of a wonderful cigar. I did try some very nice pipe tobacco when I was over there. I was like, yeah, I could really take this up. Vulture. Panama Hat is very much into pipe smoking. He owns a lot of pipes and a big pipe cleaning station and a wonderful array of pipe tobacco. He's shown me many photos.
I mainly just switch between Peterson Mixture 965 and Samuel Gower Squadron Leader.
And they don't have any plain packaging. They don't have any brand packaging over there with pipe tobacco either, do they? It's all covered in the fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's the one shameful thing. Like the Peterson stuff has the branding on the top, and then it has like smoking kills underneath. And
I had heard good things about Peterson pipe tobacco.
Yeah.
I think I'll start there.
I just smoke chop, guys. So Seriously, I do. I'd pay $35 for 100 cigarettes, which in Australia is dirt cheap.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is the pipe is a lot cheaper than the cigars, like a lot cheaper. I mean I've been smoking this.
It's not in UK. It's not anywhere else, mate. As far as I can work out, I did switch mostly from tailor-mades to roll your own stuff. That's not cheaper anymore. You can't do that anymore.
No, like a 25 gram or 50 gram pouch of tobacco is like $100 fucking. Or a 50 gram pouch of tobacco is probably 150 now. Surely, it's ridiculous.
Getting that way.
And so, like, yeah, you have people that switch to rollies so that they save some money, and then you watch them roll the cigarette, and they roll the thinnest, tiniest cigarette they can because it's like it's already gold itself. It's fucking insane.
People used to say to me, "Why don't you put a filter in that?" And I used to say, "Because I can't roll it thin enough." And some dude would say to me, "Oh, hardcore, okay." But yeah, these
Alice
days,
Liddell says it's all lung cancer, lol. But it's like we were talking about pipes and cigars. You don't actually inhale it.
Well, you don't with those. I used to inhale.
You may get mouth and throat cancer. But I mean, it depends how heavy of a smoker you are. I mean, how many cigars a day did Winston Churchill smoke? He smoked like 10 or 11 cigars a fucking day, and he didn't.
Life will kill you, whatever you do. It will always kill you. Have fun while you're living.
I mean, I'm just autistic enough that I still have to look into the risks. So I did go for all that, and I think I saw a thing by the. I mean, this isn't the topic to get this autistic over, but I will anyway. I did see a paper by the US Medical General where they basically said that I think you can smoke up to 6 bowls of pipe tobacco a day before you start to see an increased risk in any type of cancer, which is a lot of fucking tobacco.
I can kind of believe that. Like I said, I smoke chop. If I didn't, I'd have big time problems. I really couldn't afford to smoke if I didn't. But why do I want to pay the government like 85% tax, which is basically what you're paying in Australia these days, and in the UK and everywhere else?
Yeah, that's really the biggest sort of drawback of it is you're just giving these people money. I don't know what the prices are down there, but if I buy a 50 gram tin of pipe tobacco, it's sort of like £18. That will last me a fair while. Though,
so that's about what? £18 is about $28, $29 Australian, something like that.
What's the penalty for in the UK? Do you know what the penalty is for growing your own tobacco? I think in Australia
you can't do it, Chris. You can't do it. The climate's wrong.
No,
climate's wrong.
You can. Well, you have to germinate them in a greenhouse, but you can then move them outside and grow them.
Because I think it's minimum I think it's like 10 years prison here or something like that.
Hell.
It's insane.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as bad as that, Chris. But yeah,
it's fucking it's a federal crime,
and certainly not for using it rather than selling it.
No, I'm just thinking, growing it, even for personal use, you can actually risk jail time.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, the guys who I know, they're mostly Indonesians or people like that, and
you can grow tobacco in the UK for personal use. I just had to double check that.
I'm moving to the UK. I'm out of here.
Yeah, because I am in the middle of planning out a little setup so I can grow like a couple of different varieties and make my own blends.
Yeah, you've got to do it in a greenhouse in the UK.
I'll live in the middle of Birmingham if it means I can grow my own tobacco. God damn it!
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, Chris. Promise. You live in Cairns, for fuck's sake, man.
I know. I'm being.
Cairns has its drawbacks, but
Cairns is fucking paradise, mate.
Because
this is paradise.
You've got that beautiful botanic gardens you can walk through. You know that one, don't you?
Don't need the botanic gardens. I just walk around like the area, and it's like that. It's the tropics. It's beautiful flora everywhere you go. It's wonderful.
And you can walk up into the hills in Cairns where there are actually cassowaries, although you'll almost never see them because they're like in the forest.
Yeah. And they generally leave you alone if you're out and about.
I used to go right up to the top of the hill, and you would hear.
If you walk in between two cassowary chicks and its mother, you will probably die. And you know what? I actually I didn't realize this. I was doing a roofing job out in Kuranda, which is sort of cassowary central. It's by a crow's flight. It's literally 10 minutes from my house, but because the range drive is so retarded, it takes about 45 minutes to get there from my house. It's literally just up the hill right next to me. I can see it from here. But I was doing a roofing job, and when I was sitting on the ground having smoko, there were two big brown birds walking around, but they were young. And I was like, oh, what the fuck are they? I thought they were like peacock chicks or something like that.
Young cassowaries.
And I didn't realize that they were actually young cassowaries, and I did not see the mother. They were sort of wandering around, and I was like, I'm definitely, after I found out what they were, I was driving home and I was like, I was literally in between chicks and a cassowary mother. Like, I'm so fucking glad she didn't see me. Oh my God.
But that's an Aussie thing to do,
What's that? Put your life on the line every day.
Yeah,
with, the animals.
Yeah, it's an Aussie thing to do. It's cool. And I used to walk around all those hills around Cairns when I lived there twice. And I used to walk around all those hills in the hope of ever catching a glimpse of a cassowary. I never did.
This is totally unrelated. You might get a chuckle out of this, Adam. And I posted it in the Discord, but I don't know why I looked for this. For some reason, I'm on Hope Not Hate website, and it must be satire at this point because it's got this article here. It's got this article here. Tommy Robinson reveals his anti-Semitic views. Tommy Robinson, the famous literal Zionist. And the reason he's anti-Semitic is because he was claiming that a lot of the tribe are in power because their average IQ is about 110. That was his anti-Semitic statement. He's saying they're smarter than us, and that's why they're in power.
110. When most of us are like 140 or 150.
No. 100. The average IQ is 100.
Yeah, I know, but most of us guys are somewhere between 130 and 150.
Well, calm down.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my IQ test and it wasn't that high, so I feel a bit cheated.
Mine's 159 when I was 14, although I've lost many brain cells. Many brain cells.
149!
59, mate. 159.
That must have been a faulty test, surely.
No. It was done by a Jewish psychologist. It really was done by a Jewish psychologist.
You're killing me. Stop it.
His name was Dr. Rabinovitz. And you know how he did it? I played hooky from... No, this is a serious story. I played hooky from school for 18 months. I used to spend my dinner money that my dad gave me to either go to the Imperial War Museum or the National Army Museum or occasionally London Zoo or the Natural History Museum and all that shit because I lived in the middle of London. That's what I really did. All right. And this dude, the school inspectors thought I had school phobia, whatever the fuck that's supposed to be. But what I actually
159 IQ.
I'm not joking, mate. You think I'm joking?
No. Bilbo Balboa in the chat said 159 ING.
Yeah,
159 is literally genius level. I know, man. Doing rocket science.
I know. And look what I've done with my life. I was an infantry soldier, and I'm not joking. I was literally an infantry soldier. That's the best. I was a platoon commander at my best, and an NCO platoon commander at that. But honestly, this dude did this test. Dr. Rabinovitz, a Jewish psychologist, and he actually said to me, he said, you know what? You should go to grammar school. But if you go to grammar school, you'll have to get your hair cut. And of course, back then, this was the 1970s, you understand. I had quite long hair God forgive me. I don't have any hair now, but and he said, you wouldn't like that. So what we'll do is he sent me for 4 days a week to private tuition to a lady in Golders Green who was also Jewish, by the way, and who eventually, when I stopped seeing her, because I moved on, gave me a copy of what's his name? The bloke who wrote The Charge of the Light Brigade, Tennyson. She gave me a copy of Tennyson's poems. And she was a Jewish lady, like in her 50s or something. And quite a nice lady, I have to say. And then one day a week, I went to a further education college where I was 14 and everyone else was at least 17, which didn't do me any good because I started drinking quite early. But anyway, so I did that shit. And then after the Jewish lady stopped tutoring me, I then got an English dude who had run one of the Waterloo churches in London, who was born in India in 1909 or something like that, who hated Gandhi, quite rightly, because Gandhi was an arsehole. But yeah, great bloke. He'd been to Russia, he'd been all over the place. But the laureates, no, I didn't do an IQ test. I got given a test which lasted about 2.5 hours or something. And I did actually at 14 have an IQ of 159. But I mean, like I said,
the laureate says, I did an IQ test. It was positive.
Yeah. Since then, I have lost many brain cells from too much alcohol, etc., and being here and there as well. So but yeah, honestly, it's funny. I laugh at all this, and I did. Cardamom, you're right. I did tell you that I failed to be a fireman in London. Do you know why? Couldn't do the maths. I can't do it. I'm sheer maths, man. Honestly, I'm just sheer.
Never mind, it doesn't matter.
No, tell me. I'm just sheer maths. I
don't like you to be shit at maths with an IQ like that.
No, mate. Honestly, you're completely wrong.
Yeah, there must be something wrong with that test.
No, I just can't do maths. Honestly, I cannot do maths. You know why? Because I hate it. I can't do anything I hate. Like, if you say to me, Ted, can you do military history? Yeah, absolutely I can. I can do military history pretty well. If you ask me, can I do this shit? Yeah, sure, I can do this shit because I like it. But if you say to me, can you do mathematics? No, I can't. Because I'm not interested in it. I hate it and I can't do it at all. Honestly, if you say to me, I don't know, something like 15 times divided by 75, I not only can I not do it, I won't even think about doing it. And that's where my maths comes from. And am I autistic? Adam says I'm autistic. Maybe I am. But I cannot do mathematics at all. I can do money mathematics, but if you're talking about pure math, nah, can't do it at all. Not because I hate it. I detest it and I won't even think about it.
I mean, pure maths is probably quite a bit easier than mathematical sciences or mathematical theory.
You're probably right. You're probably right, Armin. But you've got to understand something. Anytime anyone says to me, do this equation or do this mathematical thing, my brain switches off. It just switches off, and I'm not interested in doing it because I hate it.
Mitch in the chat says Chris Langan was born at the wrong time. He should have been a London fireman in the 60s.
Well, look, do you know what?
This is like it was 180 or something, wasn't it? 190.
Yeah, no, look, I think you guys are entirely correct. But honestly, when I did the London Fireman mathematics test, I failed it because most of the time what they were asking me, I didn't even know what it was.
Sounds
I
like
really
the racism of the IQ test, doesn't it?
no, it wasn't.
You got
Look,
no
if I'm really
Ngubu's
honest,
got no reference point to understand this question, sir.
if I'm really honest, I don't think any London fireman needed to know any of the stuff they asked. All it
Isn't
was
the majority? Isn't the majority
designed
of
to cut people down who could pass?
Isn't the majority of IQ tests sort of just like spatial and mental manipulation of objects in all directions and
Yes,
all that other
yeah,
sort of stuff?
and also word objects and all this. Yes, it's mostly that. Yes, it is. But like, there are people who are good at maths, and then there's me. I can't do maths. Like, if you ask me to work out like currency shit, I can do that if I think about it. But I don't even like doing that, to be honest.
I can feel myself getting stupider and stupider by the day. I did do an IQ test, I don't know, 10 years ago. I won't say what the score is because that's rude, but I'm definitely not that now. Like, it just, you definitely fucking deteriorate.
You lose brain cells. But like, I guarantee,
I forget words. I used to have an extremely high verbal IQ, and now I've just lost so many basic words from my vocabulary, or like I just forget them. I can't just bring them up in a conversation. I have to.
Your
sit down and think about
vocabulary
it.
is fine, Chris.
I have to sit down and like Google synonyms of the word that I'm thinking of.
There is no way that you or Atman are like lower than like about 130. There is no way.
I'm not going to say what it is, but
No,
when I had a proper IQ test done in an actual centre, I kind of very, very retardedly right afterwards said to the guy when he told me what the score was, when I had to go back and he told me what the score was, and I said, "Oh, only X number of points lower than Uncle Teddy," and he's like, "Oh, your uncle took an IQ test," and I was like, "No."
Well, given my name's Ted, good. Like I said, mine was under 59 at 14, but I reckon by the time I was 30, a combination of bumps on the head and wounds and too much alcohol had probably drawn me down to about 130 by then, to be honest. But
those
would
are rookie
still
numbers.
say I'm about 130 even today, easily.
Those are rookie numbers. We need to get them down. Get you down to 100.
Yeah. I think most of our best guys on the right in the Anglo-Celtic sphere are absolutely 125, 135, 140. Absolutely. And I'm talking about the good guys, not like wankers like the famous American dude who's into Apollonians these days.
Wait, what?
What's his name? Adam? Who?
No idea.
Oh, come on!
Apollonians?
You're thinking
Apollonians.
Of the American dude, yeah.
Yeah. The American dude who like pulled his wife down the stairs by her hair. Who is apparently, I reckon, ouch, probably. I reckon she said ouch.
Oh, what was she wearing? That's ouch.
God knows. No, not Greg. Grinder Greg is a different story entirely. Grinder Greg just likes very young blokes in third world countries. He likes blokes of 17 and 18 in very young nations. Yeah, in third world nations. you know.
We really are just a group of misfits, aren't we? Jesus.
Yeah,
fucking Christ.
all of us. Yeah, absolutely all of us. No, I'm thinking of the other dude who did the Roman salutes when he was quite well known. Back when he was related to Half-Baked Alaska and all these people. I don't know. No. I'd like the right, the most intelligent people on the right, but when you look at some of the stuff we do, yeah, Richard Spencer, Bill Bauer, Richard Spencer, he's the
wait. Richard Spencer dragged a girl down the stairs.
His wife.
Really?
Yeah, apparently.
That's not a very nice thing to do.
No, it isn't. I wouldn't have done it either. I might have dragged her up the stairs, not down the stairs.
But I mean, I'm thinking of the sort of women that he probably shacks up with, and they're probably just as retarded as he is. So I don't know.
Yeah, he's gay, mate. He's mostly gay.
Oh, you reckon it was like lashing out of anger because he's living a lie?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's a progressive Nazi.
Richard Spencer is pretty gay, I reckon. He's not a bloke, is he? Come on.
Well, this has been the running joke with myself and Mr. D and a few other people is that, yeah, Richard Spencer is literally just a very, very closeted homosexual.
Yeah, and Fuentes too is another one.
Him, I'm not so sure about, but I mean, everyone says he's into cat boys, so I don't know what to believe anymore. The internet is a series of tubes.
He is into cat boys, and look, come on, Chris. All right, I'm going to ask you this as a bloke to a bloke.
No, I'm not gay.
No, I know you're not. you're about to become a dad, for fuck's sake. But what I'm
Ricky Martin is a dad though. He was married with kids.
Yeah, well, sure, but
I could just be living the vida loca.
Oscar Wilde had kids, but I'm not talking about those outliers. What I am trying to say is, like, I reckon me, you, and Alma could like have a good drunk and get drunk and like we just have a laugh. But good old Nick Fuentes likes cat boys, and not only does he like cat boys, he spent a whole day going shopping with his cat boy. Now, would you or I ever spend a whole day going shopping with each other or at them? Because I don't think we would. You see, I think we'd say, "Fuck that shit, no way." But I've spent half a day going shopping with my woman, like to make sure she buys something cute. But that's all. The idea of going shopping with another bloke is like anathema to me. Like, why would you do that? I mean, I might go shopping with another bloke, like if we were going on a camping expedition, and he said, "All right, can you show me what we should buy in terms of like, I don't know, freeze-dried food or some bollocks in a camping shop?" But like, you don't go shopping with someone for clothes.
You don't want to be walking like side by side, like Miss Congeniality, with giant paper bags full of clothes and shoes.
Yeah, holding his hand,
with Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 or whatever the song's called playing in the background.
Yeah, 555 in the chat says shopping with your woman is still pretty gay, Drew.
Agreed.
No.
No.
I used to buy my chick.
You go out with your woman in the car, and you drop her off at the shop she wants to go and waste time at, and I go and do something productive.
Yeah, I used to do that when she got her hair done. If she was getting her hair done, yeah, I'd go to the pub. But I did sometimes go to the shops with her and buy her 5-inch heels or really short skirts or some shit that I thought was cute. But
give her a credit card, send her on her way.
No, because she won't buy what you want. She won't buy what you want. You have to actually go and get those things.
What are you talking about? Shopping? Her shopping for you or her shopping for her?
No. I'd go with her and I'd get her really short skirts or like 5-inch heels or some shit that I liked, that she could then wear for me, or once a French maid's outfit, for example. But she wouldn't have bought that shit for herself, you understand?
Sounds degenerate.
Yeah, I'm totally degenerate, mate. Trust me, I am. In my past, I've even been with prostitutes.
It should only be front hole intercourse for the purpose of procreation and nothing else. Eyes closed.
Face to face, missionary.
No, eyes closed, a sheet between the two of you with just a hole cut out in it, and that's it.
Yep. And face to face, missionary position, always. Sorry. Absolutely right. Bilbo Bilbao says French maids are femboy territory nowadays. Only because you're gay, mate. Only because you're gay. If you weren't gay, you'd realise they're still really feminine and cute. But you're gay, so you look at that gay shit.
Is he literally gay?
Well, I don't know. I hope not. I don't think so. I've seen him many times. But, you don't do this shit. All you're doing, Bilbo Bilbao, is conceding your position to the left. Again. You're just conceding your position. I took my chick into a club in Sydney in, 2000, 2001, something like that. So many years ago that it doesn't matter. In a collar and leash, wearing a French maid outfit. Trust me, I'm not gay.
He brings up the AA stream that he had with Philosophicat. It was the last cigar stream that they did. And it's completely poisoned the way that I think about things now ever since I've listened to it. But it's like they were working through the Evolian concept of,
Oh yeah, I remember that. I watched it.
Oh, you were listening, yeah. But that's just totally ruined how I'm conceiving of just the day-to-day things that I do in the house, and sort of my relational strategies with my wife and with people, and I'm just looking at it. I was like, I really wish I didn't listen to that fucking stream, because now I'm literally thinking like a fucking astrologist, just like, I need to be more solar. I don't want to be too lunar with this one. Dude, fuck off. Just
but
do what you're gonna do.
Philosophica is a cute blonde.
I know, but she thinks too much. She needs to think less.
Well, she thinks like a girl. I mean,
No, she doesn't. She thinks like a guy. She's highly
she don't. No,
highly cerebral and into the esoteric Evolian literature. It's like, this is not very womanly.
Yeah, but she thinks like a girl in other ways too. I think she's
she thinks like an astrologist girl, because I mean, you remember what she was saying, the advice that she was giving to women, that if they can't find a solar man, it was like, oh, just cultivate the solar within you, and you can be the man as well. Like fucking Emma, what's her name? Emma Watson, the actress, self-dating. Yeah. I'll just date myself. It's like, come on, get out of this shit. That's the side of Evelyn that I just think is. Well,
I don't think she really believes that. And yeah, look, Evelyn can be a bit wanky sometimes. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well,
I've always said that I think Evelyn would have got on quite well with what's his name, the British magic dude from the same era who also lived in Italy. I reckon they would have gone on quite well. I've always said this. People have disagreed with me, but I could be wrong.
One Kali Yuga.
Yeah, exactly. Crowley. Alice Liddell.
Crowley.
Yeah, Crowley. I reckon Crowley and Evola might have gone all right, actually, because they were both mountain climbers. And yeah, I think they might have gone all right. But whatever. Dark Helmet says there's no gimp in my basement. No, there ain't. I don't have a basement, but even if I did, there would be no gimp in it. I actually like women in dark helmet, not blokes. But I'm quite old-fashioned man in most respects.
Wait,
And
Not old-fashioned men.
Philosophicate used to be Irving's secretary. Really? Holy shit.
who said that?
Biaki.
Anyway, on that note, I'm gonna have to get off. So.
All right, Adam,
I'll talk to you
go
all
on.
later. Yep, you too.
See you, mate.
Go on. Biaki said when Biaki said Irving's secretary, did he mean like the Irving we all know?
Yeah,
or somebody else.
The naughty one, David Irving.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Nah, I can't believe that. You need to give me some evidence of that, Mr. Biaki, and I like Biaki.
You got a source for that claim?
Yeah, I would need David Irving. You'd need to give me some source for that. I find that very hard to believe. Lumbar says David's PA. Maybe. I mean, look, if that's true.
She's deep into Evola, so it's like, you think about that sort of logically. I mean, and David Irving is obviously not the fucking boogeyman they kept making up to be. It was just part of that Kodo. Who was the other one? There was it David Cole? I want to say David Cole, who was a Jewish guy that was also part of that string
I follow
revisionist
David Cole
literature.
on YouTube. I follow him on YouTube. He's a pretty good.
And I mean, like, for the most part, every single thing they say, because I used to read all that revisionist stuff when I was very, very young, back when I was a spicy lad in my late teens, and I went through all of that literature on the Kodo archives by Irving, Cole, a few others that I can't remember their name off the top of my head, but they, basically the things that they wrote on the topic were literally just what any other sensible person was, which was there was embellishment and there was exaggeration, but shit still happened. It was still a fucking there was still war crimes going on, even though they weren't classified at the time as war crimes. That seems to be an ongoing debate, but for the most part, it's literally just like, yes, shit did happen. Very bad things did happen. It's just exaggerated. The numbers are exaggerated. That's all they're saying. That's all they're saying.
Absolutely. David Cole is a quite funny guy who's been involved with Hollywood for ages. Surprise. And who's on YouTube. And he's a Jewish dude. And his idea is that about 3 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust, not 6.
Biaki says she said that Varg Vikernes was a criminal, but he literally was. He burned down churches and shit. He literally was a criminal. I don't know what to say.
Look, my problem with what Biaki is saying, and I like Biaki, he's a good bloke. He's got some great little Aussie videos on his channel. Is like, wouldn't Philosopher have been too young to have been in that position? I don't know.
She's in her 30s, isn't she?
Well, I guess she is now, but I'm like, like
you got to remember that most of these sort of PA women are all in their early 20s.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Look, I think Philosopher is a pretty girl, and I don't know. Maybe that's true, Biaki. I have no idea. She's no way 40 plus, Biaki. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she could be. She could be.
Well, she could be maybe like 41 or something. Maybe. If she is, she's keeping her age damn well. Better than most Japanese women, and Japanese women keep their ages vastly better than Western girls do. But yeah, all right. If you say
I love it. The David Cole paradox has always cracked me up. And then, of course, you Google it now, and it's like David Cole, known as David Stein, American film director in the 90s, gained publicity as a Holocaust denier, but much of the controversy the Cole attracted resulted from the fact that he is Jewish. I love it. It's just so funny.
Well, yeah, except Jewish people wanted to kill him. At that stage.
I think he was like one of the primary contributors to the early Kodo archives, which is Kodo was just a revisionist archive.
Yeah, but Jewish people back then wanted to kill David Cole, literally. So, let's be fair. This is one reason I will not go this whole hog on.
The whole JQ.
The whole all Jewish people about. No, they're not.
Yeah.
David Cole's pretty good. What's the name of that brilliant American riotist who I always forget the name of? Who's got a video coming out actually over the next day or so. Let me check that out. He's a very old dude now, by the way. But he's also Jewish and he's really good. Not all Jewish people are bad, and a fair number of non-Jewish white people are bad.
Oh, yeah.
Is my opinion.
George, before he ran away, made a very good point, which has sort of been my position for a long time.
His name's not George.
No, George that was.
George who used to come on. Yeah, George.
Our friend on the stream
good bloke.
But
good bloke.
Before he ran away, he made a good point about the fact that so much of what people have been attributing to a particular group in terms of the positioning themselves as basically the enemy of the populace rather than the representative of the populace has for the most part been driven by WASPs in each of these countries, and that is true, and even if it is the case that there is an overrepresentation of a certain group in the area of power, the only reason that happens is through quiescence on the side of the host nation. So we can fucking whinge and complain about their overrepresentation in any society, but at the end of the day, that's only allowed to happen because it was allowed to happen by people that should have been perhaps a little bit more cautious, but they are our enemy, so they just do whatever's beneficial to them. So I mean, it's for the most part, it is just wasps on wasps.
Much true.
And these are just cowards and scumbags. The bankers, the bonuses. The bankers, the bonuses. It's fucking. So yeah, and I know that because I look at Australian politics and it's like there's such tiny influence from that group in our politics, and they're really not overrepresented in our politics at all. Yet we do the exact same thing, and it's not just copycat. We have politicians that initiate these things because they're all just for the interest of their sort of banking buddies. It's really just an epidemic of the banker class more than anything. I'd say the bankers and the lawyers. So yeah, and of course, yeah, like when you look at fucking Malcolm Turnbull, Scott Morrison, all those types, it's just like these are just like dudes that look after their banker buddies. That's literally all they are. So and that replicates in basically every fucking Western country today. So it's not a tribe problem. It's a banker problem.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of problem with our own people, to be honest. There are a lot of Anglo-Celtic people who are enemies of our people,
Mm-hmm.
Like when I say our people, I mean the people who you and I, Chris, who would regard as good blokes, or women.
Well, they're traitors.
Yeah,
they're traitors.
They are.
Yeah.
They're absolute traitors, and there are loads. Are there loads of like bad, generally secular Jewish people? Yeah, I think there are loads. I think there are loads.
Mm-hmm. And there's good reason for that too.
Well, for them there might be, but like I'm not them, so I don't care.
No. But it is the. I mean, funnily enough, as what Evola points out in one of his books, it is the rootless nature of their people that causes that behavior. So, and there's so many of their own that point out the same thing. It's just like it's so ingrained in them, thousands of years of exile wherever they go that they cannot help themselves but to be, to position themselves in this way, in this middleman position. And it just so happens that a lot of what they do does undermine, but it's not that it's not out of malicious intent. It's literally just like they don't know how else to position themselves in a society.
Much truth.
Like it's just how it is. So
yeah, I think there's a great deal of truth in that. There are good Jewish people, for sure there are, but there are bad Jewish people. But like there are loads of bad, supposedly Western Anglo-Celtic European people. There are just loads of them. You just detest everything we stand for.
Yeah, I find the white progressive so much more detestable than the average Jew. It's like they are just so.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do with it? What do you do with these people?
What do you do?
Say Australians are evil because they've done X, Y, or Z, or British people are evil because they've done X, Y, or Z. Same with Canada, same with New Zealand, same in fucking South Africa. And it's just nonsense. Like, of all the peoples in the world, the Anglo-Celts have probably been the least bad. I mean, I'm not saying we've been anything like perfect, because there are no perfect people, but compared to most others, the Anglo-Celts have been, I mean, one of the things that's come out in your Australian history series is like the Anglo-Celts in Australia tried really, really hard to be nice and kind to Aboriginals. And it hasn't fucking worked whatsoever.
No. Because it's self-destructive in its own way, especially if you make that a foundational principle of your society is to be of service and of a conciliatory presence to the people that you really should be subjugating if you want your civilization to look like your civilization. If you keep trying to do this soft power thing, which we've done the soft power thing from the very start, that was the problem.
Yep.
And we still do the soft power. It's like it just gets fucking nowhere, and that sounds horrible and callous and whatever else, but it's like it's just when you're looking at civilizational history from just as AA would say, just doing a value-free analysis. It's just reality. It's just fact. It's like
how many times do you see Richard saying to me, you're proud of how many toilets the British built in India? I don't give a fuck how many toilets the British built in India. That's his way of taking the piss out of me.
All right? Have toilets,
and I don't give a fucking shit if we never built one toilet in India.
I don't think they would either.
But absolutely, because they don't use them anyway. But I mean, I detest Winston Churchill. I hate and detest Winston Churchill. If you talk to me about the Bengal famine, I will point out to you the Bengal famine was caused by German U-boats and the Imperial Japanese Navy sinking British merchant ships. That's what caused it, not Churchill.
Who made the joke headline? What was it? Rishi Sunak's first order of business was removing all the toilets from 10 Downing Street.
Funny, man. Funny. I believe it. Look, Rishi Sunak was elected by no one, and he's an imposed Indian alien ruler on Britain. That's what he is. Sorry. Another reason why the Conservatives must, in inverted commas, must be destroyed.
The Thames shall foam with much shit.
Hell, yeah. Look, he's an Indian banker, for fuck's sake. I mean, yeah, all right. Why was Liz Truss one of, they always say the shortest, and she wasn't, one of the shortest lived British prime ministers ever? Why?
So
I mean,
there'd be a war. So there'd be like a weird political infighting, or not infighting, but a political battle going on between Rishi Sunak and what's that fucking Sadiq Khan? There would be, right? Surely. Because I mean, I'm sure Sadiq Khan views Rishi Sunak as a far right extremist in his view.
I very much doubt that, but John Best says that Liz Truss was retarded, and yes, indeed, she was. But I don't know. Was
She's
she
just a
worse
foot soldier. I mean,
was she worse than Rishi Sunak? No, not really.
She was pretty stupid. I mean, if you look at her videos from the 90s, when she was in the Lib Dems and she was standing up and doing all the socialist, rally cries, she did sound, somewhat articulate, even for her age, because she was quite young. But then I don't know what she's just. You look at that and you compare it to her famous cheese speech. It's like these are two completely different fucking
We
people.
have more cheese than France. Oh my. Dostastic Draco in the chat says, Alex Little, yes, Rishi Sunak is revenge as a colonial viceroy. Yeah, that's what I think.
Does he have that attitude? Has he spoken about that?
100. No, of course he doesn't ever speak about it, but yeah, that's what he is. 100%.
So do you reckon that he believes that he's part of some cosmic justice for colonialism in India? Do you reckon he believes that, or is he neutral?
I don't think he believes anything. I think he's so.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I don't think he believes anything. But I think loads of people who like him believe that. I don't think he believes it. I think he's too dim to have an opinion about that thing. Like he's a banker, for fuck's sake. He doesn't, look, when I spoke about maths earlier and like how it switches me off, I am utterly convinced that most people who are good at maths are stupid. Like
there is an element of that.
Really stupid.
There is an element of that. I mean, because especially if you are of that industry and you've been trained up for it. Because I mean, someone was saying in the chat earlier that really mathematics and getting good at mathematics is just learning tricks extensively.
I mean, it's useless because you can do it all on a calculator or a computer.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying that when you're into if you're in that industry. And part of your jobs is understanding maths and finance and the economy and stuff like that. I feel like that, once you sort of learn those skills in that area, that doesn't necessarily carry over to anything else at all. And I've met many people that work, in the banking area, and they're not really very smart. I mean, they have, they're not stupid, but in anything not related to their job, they really don't know much, and they're no different from any other normie. So
yeah,
they have no interest to learn either. They don't have no interest to. It's like you think of an accountant. Can you imagine an accountant enthusiastically reading about history or art or anything like that, or being creative?
I've got to name one. John Cavalier is an accountant, and he really likes history, and I don't dislike John Cavalier, and he is not. He's absolutely not a Tory boy.
Max out.
He really isn't. So, I've just got to tell the truth, mate. I always try. But yeah, But I would say this. I think it's a bit like, people say, "Oh, you can't do maths. You must be stupid." But as you said, Chris, it's also the other way around. If you can only do maths, you're probably stupid too.
Well, it's not just that. It's just that just because you're good at maths, it doesn't mean you're smart. It's,
No,
it's not. It doesn't carry over all the time. Whereas,
absolutely doesn't.
and because it's all about general IQ as well. I mean, we're thinking about IQ. General IQ is completely fucking dropped. Now, the only reason the average IQ went up in the first place, sort of through, the later of the 20th century, was just because specialized IQ was increasing. People were getting, exceptional in very specialized areas. But general IQ has gone down massively. So it expresses itself in the population when you sort of come across these people that they can't really, like, they're not really the polymath has long become extinct for the most part.
For sure.
I mean,
555 in the chat is telling me maths is useless, in inverted commas. Such a shit take. Nah, sorry, mate. All maths is really easily done now on calculators or computers. I don't understand this story that people still come out with. If I can do maths in my head, I'm really clever. Don't get it, because you don't need to do that anymore. And it hasn't been true since, I don't know, 1985, 1990 at most. Any mathematics you want to do, you can do on a fucking calculator or on a computer. It's ridiculous to pretend that maths is some fabulous thing. Like, to me, understanding history, talking about English literature, talking about art even, all of which are more complicated, that no computer and no calculator will help you with in the least tiny degree.
Yeah.
They won't help you with that at all. And like, if you're someone like Chris, who like actually works with his hands and has to go up on a roof and say, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Again, that sort of maths ain't going to help you.
Yeah. There's like, I have a friend from high school who became a mathematician professionally. And he basically looked at the entire existence of life as just a series of equations. And I just, listening to him talk about it, I was just thinking, like, there is no magic at all in anything you're saying. Everything, like saying that, you can just calculate the entire universe and everything is just maths. Like, you poor soul, like that. But I mean, he is autistic as well, so I'm sure for him it's fabulous. But and he said, music, all of music is maths, which there is an element of truth to that. The structure of music has a mathematical formula, like an extensive one. But he said, look, because I have a thorough understanding of the musical mathematical formula, I can compose music. And he put together a bunch of this MIDI music in a program. And yeah, it was just rubbish. I was like, this is nonsense.
Because music is stuff not only from the head, it's stuff from the heart as well. And for stuff that I don't know how to explain this. Look, people get rhythm and beats and all this stuff. That's not mathematically explainable. It's just not. I don't think, anyway.
Well, I've got to get going soon, so we should probably wrap up.
Yeah, no worries, man. I don't know. I just think, like, the idea that math explains everything is fucking insane. But yeah. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's just a symptom of the post-Enlightenment rationalism that sort of took hold of everything.
Yeah.
And that's just another part of it. I mean, yes, it has extremely high utility once you get into the very advanced field of it with, theoretical maths and all that sort of stuff. But for the average person, it's just like, no. As you say,
much?
I mean, for the average person, the utility of maths has been outsourced to technology now. So, I mean, we're not going to sit here and fucking pretend like the average pleb that wasn't part of, the upper class in times past. You can't fucking tell me that they all knew maths, because they didn't. So there's no point pretending like we should be teaching all the fucking low IQ masses maths, because it's pointless. It's a waste of time.
Well, look, the Brits have just gone off, like Rishi Sunak, specifically that everyone should do maths until 18. Why? Because most mathematics you could do on a calculator or on your computer. Why do you need this maths? What's it going to give you exactly? It's bullshit. I just don't get it. It's absolute crap. It really. Dark Helmet says, "What about the dipsticks with the doomsday clock?" Well, you know what? The more Western tanks we send to Ukraine, the more likely there's going to be a nuclear war. But I mean, that's not maths. It's not. It's not maths at all. It's like common sense, maybe. I don't know. But whatever. Anyway, Chris, many thanks for joining the stream. Adam and earlier,
My pleasure.
Many thanks for joining the stream. As always, I'm going to play us out with a tune. And like, really, guys, like, modern maths is an excuse. It's crap.
Should you play Day in the Life of a True Aussie Bloke for the audience?
No, mate, I can't play that. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I can't.
Okay.
I wish I could, but I can't. And I'd also have to do a disclaimer about kicking dogs. I never mind the really ugly chick who says, with the T-shirt that says like, "You can't afford me," but no. Yeah, it's a great video. Go and check out Chris Scar's channel and check out his latest video. But no, I'm going to play something else for this, which many Englishmen will hate. But there we go.
Eject Scotland.
Yeah. Absolutely not. I'm never going to agree to that. I have many good Scottish friends, so no. Scotland's a good place. It's also beautiful, Chris. Have you been to Scotland?
No.
Yeah, you should go, man. Go right up to the north-west coast of Scotland, like Cape Wrath, around there.
Mm. Yeah,
So
I do
good.
intend to when we go back over there for the next event in
So
August.
good.
I'll definitely go to Scotland.
My deal is I want an Australian event early next year. That would be great.
Mm.
Hopefully in Melbourne, I would hope.
Ugh.
No, that's the place to do it because it's the
God, I
heart
hate
of
Melbourne.
our.
I just don't
Yeah,
want to go to
so
Melbourne.
me. I live outside Melbourne and I detest it. But it's the heart of our enemies, and that's where we should do it.
Alrighty.
Anyway, thank you very much for joining the stream, Chris. And also to Alan earlier, and hopefully, Chris, we'll soon have our part 3 of the Australian history stream.
Yeah, I've found it extremely difficult to sit down and read in the past week or two. My brain has just shut off.
Holidays and all that. That's all right.
Yeah. So,
Soon.
but I've taken down quite a lot of notes for the next one. So once I've formalized them in on the computer and sort of work my way through the structure of it, because it's one of those things that once you get started, it's easy. You're on a roll, but it's just getting into the actual beginning of it. So, but yeah,
that'll be cool, man. I will look forward to that. The first 2 have been really good. And I'm hoping we can tie the Franklin and Furious into some of our later Australian history streams. Because I'm hoping we'll do like I don't know, what are we on? Part 3 is the next one?
It'll be part 3, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping we'll go up to about part 6 or something like that. And
easy.
We'll get some of these guys to come and join us because they love history too, so that'll be cool.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, mate. Go well. Have a good day. Check you later.
See everybody. Bye.